Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we cover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather, here with my co host Preston Chandler. Together we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. Today's guest is on a mission to rehumanize leadership in the modern workplace. We're thrilled to welcome Amy Summers, entrepreneur, communications expert, and author of the upcoming book, Lift 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career. Amy has led virtual organizations for more than 2 decades, teaching leaders how to build trust, communicate with empathy, and lead with integrity in an increasingly disconnected world. She's also the creator of the award winning microcast the Pitch with Amy Summers, with over 1,000 episodes on Amazon Alexa, and host of Pitch Live, where she helps audiences transform small interactions into meaningful opportunities for growth and connection. Amy's work bridges mentorship, communication, and purpose, and shows how everyday moments can become the foundation for extraordinary leadership. Amy, that's a lot. I'm really excited. I love the book. I love the idea of the pitch and what you're doing. I think this can be a really great conversation. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I think what
Awesome.
intrigues me the most is we thought we were cool getting like 100 episodes, but you have 1,000
Yeah.
episodes. You just put us to shame.
Well, and it's
Well,
interesting to me.
with the microcast, it's a little bit easier because it's a short format. It's not the long
That's fair.
format. So you
And
can
it
rack
also
them up. I was
sounds,
doing them every day for a while.
that's good. I love that. And it also sounds like you were doing the whole virtual thing before it was cool with COVID and all that sort of stuff as
Oh,
well.
definitely. Yeah. Nobody wanted to
So
work for me.
I don't know. I love the virtual stuff, but
Things
maybe
have
I'm the
changed
odd one out.
drastically.
Yeah. So you call your approach everyday mentorship, which I love because I think we sometimes look at mentorship as like that meeting you schedule once a month that happens. So every day, like that's kind of that everyday feedback kind of thing rather than the yearly review. I like that approach, that micro mentorship,
Mm.
micro feedback. But I'm curious, when you talk about everyday mentorship, what does that mean to you? And how do you see it as different than maybe the traditional organizational mentoring programs that you see normally?
Well, obviously for companies to have mentorship programs, I don't want to say that that's a bad thing. I think sometimes you intentionally have to do it if you're not doing it. But, the way I see it is that mentorship is something it should be part of your leadership style. It shouldn't be like a
Yeah.
separate thing, like you mentioned, like a coffee break or something. And you made me think of something when you were just talking about that. You hear couples who are in relationships talk about or married couples especially, having a date night to make
Yeah.
sure that they do something. But shouldn't date night be like every night? I mean, so that's kind of the same idea. It's like, why are we just doing mentorship like you said, once a month or at a coffee break or something? It should be part of your leadership style.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I wrote the book was just to help raise awareness that whether you call yourself a mentor or not, you're mentoring. And you're either mentoring and modeling good communication or bad communication, or good habits or bad habits. I mean, but we're all modeling that. And if anyone's ever had kids, they know, because kids mimic
Oh,
everything that you
absolutely.
do, but people at work mimic everything you do. So if you have a bad leader, or you have a leader that's really mean to other people, then their managers also kind of mimic that.
Yeah.
I think
No, I love that.
that really resonates with JL and I. We often talk about leaders needing to think of themselves as a mentor instead of a leader. And so I love it. It's nice to know that we're not the only crazy ones, but that we have like-minded people.
Well, and have you ever heard of the concept of pebbling?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it comes from penguins, and this idea that like they bring pebbles and all this stuff. But the way it comes to life, and I talk to my wife about this a lot because I'll do throughout the day, especially when I travel, I'll just send my wife little text messages here and there, just to remind her that I exist and all that sort of stuff. And your comparison to date night made me think of this is leaders, whether you realize it or not, like everything you do is a pebble that people are picking up and
Mhm.
running with. And it's what you really want to do, I think, and what you're saying is be intentional about it. I'm
Yes.
curious, when you're talking to leaders, like how do you help them get that more intentional mindset? And like how does that come to life for them?
I think that sometimes you have to set up some type of structure and reminders. Just like like you talked about just now with your wife and pebbling, like you have to think about, hey, I'm going to text her every so often. You have to set up routines. If we
Yeah.
don't, we just kind of power through our day, right? And especially if you are in a hybrid or remote atmosphere where a lot of your work is being done from home and you don't even see your team half the time,
Right.
you really have to set up systems that remind you to pick up the phone every once in a while, make that impromptu phone call. I think as far as communications goes, we've lost a lot of our impromptu communications. I mean,
Oh,
even
yeah.
my mom will sometimes text me, "Can I call you?" instead of just calling me. She used to just call me.
Yeah.
So we don't have that anymore. And we need to remember to do that because that's the human side of being human.
No, I like that. And I think maybe part of the problem I see is there's a certain level of vulnerability that comes with doing that, right? It's not just about the work anymore. You actually have to put yourself out there in a certain way. And I think that's probably something a lot of leaders aren't very good at. So maybe what role does vulnerability play in being an effective mentor and fitting into this kind of mindset?
Well, being vulnerable is really important because that's how you relate to others. So we're not robots, right? So if we're projecting this perfectionism and, that we're not approachable, then we're not going to get the same productivity out of our team as if they see us as a real person. So even, in my book, it's a leadership book. But
Yeah.
a lot of leadership books read like, okay, I've learned all this and this is what you do and here are all the things. And I was really the opposite of that, the way I
Mm.
wrote my book. I wrote about everything I did wrong and how you can do it better. Because I think people need to know your faults. They need to know
Yeah.
where do you mess up. And even with my own team today, I'll say, oh gosh, I made a mistake. And I'll say, this is how I fixed it. Because I want them to know if they make a mistake, that they can fix it too, that it's not the end of the world. And I think it's really important to model that and to be vulnerable about it and to let people relate to you. It's just like social media. I mean, if you put up a picture of yourself that's like perfect, it's a great headshot, it's been, you look amazing, nobody likes it. You put a picture up of you after a workout, you don't look that great, or I don't know, you had a bad day, everyone likes it because
Yeah.
it's real. It's real.
Yeah. Well, and vulnerability, like ever since Brene Brown kind of hit the scene, I feel like it's been a term and a concept that has taken off. We interviewed a guy, Jason Gaikowski, a while ago, someone we know pretty well, and he kind of talked about maybe some of the risks of vulnerability and maybe that it was overhyped. I don't know that I agree with him exactly, but I'm curious, like in your mind, what are the limits of vulnerability? Like where does it become too much? Like where do people get it wrong?
Well, I think if we're talking about it in a work sense, first of all, we've all been trained that you can't share too much. You can't share too much with your boss. You might risk losing your job. If you're having a bad week, don't tell them. If you're breaking up with somebody, don't tell them about that. But on the flip side of that is if you are having a bad week at work and you're not sharing something with your boss or manager, then I mean that could be very bad for you too. They could just
Right.
see you as having bad performance. So I always advise people, okay, you don't have to give all the details. You don't have to give all the details of the messy divorce you're going through and the ins and outs and what's happening with the kids, but you need to share something. You need to say, "Hey, I'm feeling a little off this week. I just wanted to let you know I'm having some issues at home that I'm trying to deal with. And so I just wanted to let you know in advance that if I seem off or I don't seem like myself, it's just because I'm trying to juggle this right now. And so I could just use some grace this week." And that's a real transparent conversation. Same thing, flip it for the boss. Same thing, if the boss doesn't want to share our finances are down and clients haven't paid us and things are really bad, but you have to share something, otherwise people could jump ship, from your organization and not even know what you're going through or feel like, you can create a lot of team camaraderie if you let people know, hey, it's a really bad time right now. The economy is not good. We're struggling with clients. So we could really use everyone's help to, take it up a notch or just know that everyone's job is okay. We're doing okay, or give some assurance, but you have to give some kind of transparency so that people know they're not making up a story in their head about what's happening
Right.
on. And that could go either way from the boss
Oh
or
yeah.
the employee side.
I think as you described that, it just strikes me as a careful balance where you have to have the vulnerability, but you can't go so far that I don't know that you destroy your ability to be a leader. So I have maybe a question about a different type of balance along those lines is leaders need to have authority. They need to be leading, but they also need to have empathy and have some of that vulnerability. So how can leaders balance that? And I think especially what JL and I often see is that the balance becomes difficult when there's pressure. when there's some external pressures. So
Mhm.
how do you suggest leaders balance that?
Well, first of all, a leader has to have an empathy chip. And let's face it, not everybody does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to run into those bosses or those leaders. We all know them that just, they don't even see it. So they don't have an
Right.
empathy chip. But if you do have an empathy chip, it can still be hard when you're trying to power through your day and get things done to just roll over people. So let's just take something like someone calls in and says, I'm sick, I can't make it today. As a leader, your first response should not be, when can you make up the time?
Yeah.
Or can you at least work till 4 or, whatever the response is. But it should be, how are you? Are you okay? Have you seen a doctor? Do you need me to ship you some supplements? Like, what's going on? Can I help you out? So that goes a long way. And
Yeah.
some people might say, well, that's getting too personal. Well, maybe or maybe not. I mean, I've had that conversation with many team members who said, I'm sick. I'm like, have you gone to the doctor? And they're like, no, I'm going to wait it out for a week. I'm like, go. You have off today. Go to the doctor because I know they're going to get better if they find out what's wrong with them. And maybe there's no one in their life telling them that type of thing. So that's, or maybe somebody comes to you and they say they quit. They're quitting. And of course, that can be a real shock to a leader because, anytime you lose somebody, it's scramble, right? Because you got
Yeah.
to find somebody else. But if they're leaving you, it's also an opportunity to have a moment and find out if they're okay and find out how you can help, even if they're not going to stay with you. I have a whole chapter in my book left about healthy exits where I address this.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably like the thing that nobody talks about. It's like when you're leaving a company or a boss is firing you or you're leaving on your own regard, like how do you leave in a healthy way? And it comes down to, your last relationship touch point with that person. What is it going to look
Yeah.
like? And so I mean, yes, you have to be a leader, you have to be the boss, you have to do all these things, but we're dealing with people here. And that's more important than money, status, or anything else is the person. So it should be always it's be people first and every time you respond. And sometimes you just have to take a break or just take a moment, say, hey, I need to call you back just so you can gather your thoughts and then come back to them instead of having your immediate response, which may not be the best.
Well, and I think, there's plenty of data out there that shows the people first organizations outperform their
Yeah.
competition. So I don't think there's a lot of doubt in that. To tie this all back maybe a little bit, I think what it sounds like we're talking about is if you want to be an effective mentor, you have to have trust, right? And to have trust, you have to be able to show vulnerability. You have to be able to have some empathy. You have to be able to exercise influence and authority in a constructive way. And I'm curious, like as you look through your book, the 10 mentorship touch points, I'm sure a big part of what you're trying to tell people how to do is this is not only how you mentor, but this is how you make sure that people are in a place where they can actually hear what you're saying.
Exactly. I mean, when I wrote the book, I obviously wrote it for business and
Yeah.
leaders, but the information in there is transferable to
Right.
relationships with your children, with your spouse, with your partners, with family members. It's all the same lessons, right? It's like show up, be there, be intentional. If you are in a remote atmosphere, you're going to have to get together with the people every once in a while. There's something about human connection. You have to that's how people really learn and that's how they get
Yeah.
to know you. I mean, can you imagine sending your child off to preschool on Zoom and them never interacting with anybody? I mean, that would be a total disaster, but
Yeah.
we're doing it in work right now because college students are graduating. They've likely done their internship through Zoom and it
Right.
probably wasn't a very good one. And then they're immediately thrown into hybrid and remote work environments. And so the first client dinner that they go to, they don't even know how to act. I went to a dinner the other night and there was some young person there. She was like elbowing me and she has such bad table manners. And I was like, and I was the client. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think anyone's ever taught her. Like, this has got to be like her first dinner. And it's just simple things like that. But we have to remember in the workplace, I mean, if we wouldn't raise our children that way, like, why would we raise our team like that? We
Yeah.
have to expose them. We have to get them around other people. And so there's various touch points, throughout that development, just like, it sounds like you have a child. So in that early
Yep.
child development stage, you had many touch points that you were trying to hit on. But, young professionals, they need the same touch points.
Yep.
And career professionals need it too. We still need all that interaction.
I always like to joke some of the best leadership books I've read came out of the parenting section of the bookstore. So I think that there's a lot of truth to that. Now I know we're kind of running low on time, so I'm curious to kind of wrap things up. given all your experience and everyone that you've talked to in your live sessions, all that sort of stuff, what's the biggest lesson? Like, what's the biggest standout that you think people need to know?
Mentorship is relationship. That's what it is. It's that easy. It's your relationship with others. It's not something you sign up for. It's not something you put on your resume. It's just how are you relating to others? And that is the most important thing that you can do in your leadership.
I love it.
I
Keep
like
it
that a
simple.
lot. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and I would add to that is relationships are your career. I think when you
Mhm.
look at people today who are struggling to find jobs in the market right now, the ones that do it because of their relationships. I think that's a lesson everyone should probably learn from a little bit when they're looking at how they mentor, how they relate, any of it. So,
Yeah,
Agreed.
you
Amy,
never know. You never know when someone who's working for you is going to be your boss one day. So
absolutely, yeah, for sure.
tables can turn quickly.
Absolutely. Amy, this has been absolutely fantastic. I love these types of conversations. I love digging into the leadership side of the world. It's been fantastic. For everyone else who's made it all the way to the end of the episode with us, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review, we'd love to hear what are your leadership challenges? And this can be on either side of the issue. As a leader, where have you struggled to mentor? As a person being led, where have you struggled? Where has it gone wrong? Where has it gone right? We'd love to hear from you. And if you know a leader who needs maybe a little bit of help with mentorship and learning how to relate, maybe pass on this episode, introduce them to Amy and her book, which I'm going to have to get to the name, the Lift 10 Mentorship Touchpoints to Empower Your Team and Accelerate Your Career, because I think it could be valuable. I think, Amy, I agree with you. Mentorship is something every leader needs to do better at. That said, again, Amy, thank you so much for the time. It's been fantastic. Everyone else, we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks.
Thank you.